Hi everyone, in this tutorial we're going to learn more about constructors and properties in C#. So let's create a new project. At the top just click on File, New, and then click on Project. So again we are going to use Windows Form application. So now let's wait a little bit here. And now just choose Template, open it, and then select Visual C#, Windows, and then select Windows Forms application. So for the name, just type in here app2. So this is the name of the application. And for the location, you can specify a location here. You can specify the solution name and create directory for the solution and then click on OK. So let's wait a little bit here. So now that the project is created, it's time to design the user interface of the application. So first of all, we need to actually open the toolbox. At the top, just click on View, and then here, just let's find the toolbox. So this is the toolbox. So now, let's actually first of all drag some labels into this form. So here, just search for label. So this is label, and let's drag this label here. One. We need some more labels. Actually, we need to find some more labels here. So let's actually search for label. So this one, and this one. And now we have 4 labels here. So we need to have also some text box here. So here, just select one of these actually components and then search for text box. So here is the text box. Select it and just drag it here. So we need to also have 4 text box here. So now we need to also have a button. So just select one of these components and search for button and drag this button here. And we need to also drag another label. So let's drag another label here. If you want to, you can actually select one of these labels, for example, and copy and paste some labels here. So let me actually close the toolbox because we don't need it anymore. Let me also close this properties window because I want to first design this form. So let's actually position these labels here according to these guidelines here. So let's also position this, actually this text box. I think it's good here. And let's also position this text box here, this one, and this one. So let's put this one here. And this one here, here, and here. Let's put this button here and the label here. So that's it. And now let's actually open the properties window. So just right click inside this empty area and then click on properties. Or you can just click on view at the top and you can actually find the properties window here. If you can't find it here, you can just right click here and then click on properties. So now let's select this label and let's actually search for the name attribute. So for the name attribute, which is going to be the ID of this label. So we don't have to change the name attribute of this label because we don't want to interact with this label from our C# codes. So let's find the text attribute of this label. So this is the text attribute. So the text is going to be name, colon, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Let's position this label here and let's select this second label for the text attribute. Just type in here age, colon, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Select this third label for the text, just type in here power, colon, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Let's position it here, let's adjust it, and let's select this label, label 4, and for the text, let's just type in here speed, colon, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. So now let's adjust it here. So I think that's good here. So now we have this button. Let's select this button here. And for the text attribute, just type in here, show me the result. And then press an enter key on your keyboard. So let's increase the width of this button here a little bit so that we can actually see the entire text. that is inside of this button. Let's select this label here, and now let's for the text attribute, let's assign the empty value. So just delete this label 5 and then press an enter key on your keyboard. So now let's actually assign an ID or a name to these components. So for these components that we do not want to actually interact with from our C# code, we don't have to specify a name attribute for these ones. But for this text box, for these text boxes here, for example, this one, we need to specify a name attribute, an ID actually, so that we can interact with this from our C# code. So select this text box, and then here for the name attribute, just type in here txt box name, right? And then press an enter key on your keyboard. Select this text box here for the name attribute, just type in here txt box age, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Select this text box, and for the name attribute, just type in here txt box power, and select this text box. For the name attribute, just type in here txt box speed, and then press an enter key on your keyboard and select this button here. So for the name attribute, just type in here btn show result. So we don't have to specify actually a name or an ID for this button also. Why? Because we do not want to, for example, change the look and the feel of this button. We do not want to actually, for example, change the background color of this button in order to show to the user. So we don't have to do that, actually create a name attribute for this button if you don't want to actually change the look of this button. So in that case, we want to actually just create a listener for this button. So what is a listener? A listener is just actually an object that is actually listening to this button when it is actually clicked, when it is touched, for example. So let's actually delete this name attribute for this button because we do not want to actually interact with this button from our C# code. But it says property value is not valid, right? So we have to actually at least provide a name attribute for this button. So it's the button one is okay, right? But what happens if I want to be notified when this button is clicked? I just need to double click on this button twice. So now it's going to actually create this method inside the form1 class. Here I told you that the form1 class is the class that is controlling this form1. So let me actually click on this form1.cs design so that you can see this one here. I double clicked on this button and then it created this method here inside this form1 class, which is actually a controller that is controlling this view. So whatever you put inside the curly braces of this method, button1 click, whatever we put inside this method, it's gonna actually it's going to be executed when this button here is clicked. So look at the name of this method. It says button1 click, right? So where this button1 comes from? This button1 comes from the name attribute of this button. So let's open the properties again, and here I can change the name attribute of this button. So let's change this name attribute to btn show result, right? And then press an enter key on your keyboard. So now let's go to this form1.cs that actually contains the source code that we can actually use, the source code that is controlling this view, right? So here it says button1 click. Let's actually delete this method. Let me close this properties window. Let's actually select this method and its curly braces, and let's delete it. Now I cannot actually run my application. If I run my application, there is going to be actually an error. Let's click on start here at the top, and it says build started. There were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? No. There is an error here. So what is this error? It says in the actually error list here at the bottom, it says form1 does not contain a definition for button1 underline click, and no extension method button1 underline click accepting a first argument of type form1 could be found. So this means that we actually deleted this method, right? But when we double clicked on this, as you can see, I cannot also see this design area. It says to prevent possible data loss before loading the designer, the following errors must be resolved, right? So it says that we have an error, right? It says instance of this error. app2 phone1.designer.cs line 115 column 1. So let's open the Solution Explorer. At the top, just click on View and then click on Solution Explorer. So I told you that we have the phone1.cs, which is going to show us the design, and we have the phone1.cs that we have phone1.designer.cs, which contains the source code of the user interface components that we have inside the form, right? So let me actually close this Solution Explorer. I opened this phone1.designer.cs, right? Look at this source code here. We have all these labels, all these text boxes, button, and label, right? But we have another thing here. So what is this one? Let's actually go to phone1.cs design. Here we have this error, right? Let's click on this line, up to phone1.designer.cs, line 115. So now, as you can see, this is the cause of the error. We deleted that method inside our phone1 class, right? But this line of code is actually generated when you create a listener or when you want to actually be notified when the button is clicked. This line of code here is going to be generated for you, and it's not going to be deleted automatically. You have to delete it yourself. So this is the cause of the error. As you can see, the red line here is actually pointing to this button one click. So let's actually select this line of code and then delete it. Now the error is going to be solved, and if I actually go to phone1.cs, now I can see the design area. And now let's double click on this button again, and it says btn show result underline click. So this time we have btn show result, and this is the same as the name attribute that we specified for this button, right? So that's it. So let's actually select this other label that we have here. So now let's find the other label here. So how do I know there is another label here? If I actually click on this view at the top and then Solution Explorer, you can see that inside this phone1.cs we have this phone1, and if you open it at the bottom we have this label 5. So let's go to this phone1.cs, and if I actually just drag here this and actually create a rectangle here, you can see that we have another label here, right? If I create this rectangle here, right, you can see this another label, and we have this label here. And then let's select this label. Let's open the properties window. So for the text attribute here, for this name attribute, actually, I can just type in here LBL result, because I want to actually interact with this label from our C# code. So as you can see here, it's showing us a weird error, right? It says property value is not valid. So we need to actually solve this problem. Let's actually close this message here. At the top, just click on build and then click on clean solution, okay? So just click, or it's better to click on this clean app 2. It's gonna actually clean the entire project for us. So let's wait a little bit here. And now let's actually select this label here again. Let me select it again, and let's find the name attribute, and let's assign this value LBL result. Let's see if this solved or not. And as you can see, again, it's showing us an error. So let's go back to phone1.cs. Let's actually close this Solution Explorer and this properties window. Let's save the changes here, and it says an error was encountered during the code generation. So when I actually tried to save this file by holding the control key on my keyboard down and then press an S key on my keyboard, it's showing us this error, and it says the changes you have made in the designer have not been committed to the source code. It is recommended that you actually close and reopen the source file. So let's actually close this source file here, and also this one. So let's click on this yes, save the changes, and let's click on OK. So let's close it again. So now everything is fine. So let's also close this phone1.designer.cs. So let's open it again. So just at the top, click on view, open, click on this Solution Explorer, and now let's click on this phone1.cs, and it says that there is an error, right? If I actually click on this app to phone1.designer here, it says that we have an error, and it says that the error is related to this line of code here. So let's actually go to this phone1.design.cs, and if I let's open the Solution Explorer. Let's go to this file. Let's go to the source code of this phone1.designer, the class, actually the class that is controlling this phone1.designer, phone1.cs. So now I just need to click on this phone 1 here, and this is the source code that is controlling that phone 1. And as you can see, we have no method that is related to that btn show result method, right? This method, this line of code here, is actually not put inside this class. So this line of code is the source of the error. Let's delete this line of code. Let's go back to phone1.cs, and everything is fine here. Let's go back to phone1.cs design, and now the error should be solved. So let's click on this line again, and it says that this line of code is also actually causing the error. So let's delete this line of code here. Let's go back to phone1.cs and phone1.cs design, and now I can see the design area. So now let me just right click inside this empty area and then click on properties. So here, let me actually close this. Let me make this area window a little bit small. So now let's select this label that we have here, and let's assign the value LBL result for the ID of this label, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. And now the ID, the name, is set for this label. And if I select this text box, as you can see here, we have this txt box name. So everything is saved. Txt box age, txt box power, txt box speed. We have this button btn show result, and we have this label here. If I select it here in this way, I need to actually create this. I need to drag this rectangle here in order to select this label, because there is no text inside this label. So I actually select this label, and then you can see this LBL result. So now the design of the user interface of this application is finished. Now it's time to code the application. So in the next tutorial, we're gonna continue building this application. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, please post a discussion in the comments, and then I do my best to answer all of your questions.